a commonplace thing. I think Scotland had them. I think most of Britain had them. I think there are accounts by the Romans of coming in contact with very large giants. Every German town had its own giant protecting it's the town. There's always a name of a giant. Every town in Germany has a myth of some kind of large, very black, swarthy-looking giant. And it's funny after a while when you realize that every town has this myth, and obviously it's considered to be fiction today. But these people were protecting, like Maximus. The name Maximus was not a family lineage. That was a description of Emperor Maximus. He was just very, very big. If you look at the story of David and Goliath in the Bible, you see a person that was so intimidating that the army would be led by these people. So these people would be the generals. Then you also have a lot of references in the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire later that had special units of der Größe, soldiers with the title of der Größe, which just means giant. And then also the Prussian Empire, they had a unit of very tall men, unusually tall men, that would intimidate the opposition, the opposition force. So
Yeah.
so I mean, yes, giants existed. I think trees also were bigger, and I think the tree and giant connection is a very powerful one. There were some giant trees, and so today we don't have those anymore. They were chopped down, and I think they were chopped down partly to destroy the quality of the air or the power of the oxygen that we had in the air, and as there is this connection between trees and oxygen. So maybe if you have more oxygen, you can then grow larger and you can live longer and you can have a completely different plethora of flora and fauna on the earth. So maybe giants were relying upon that, and when that was gone, there was no longer any nourishment for them to achieve these great heights. And I think we could also have been giants. I mean, we probably were bigger people. There are a lot of records of like much larger swords in Japan. There were these
Mm.
giants in Japan that had these massive swords that were weapons that were used, but they kept these safe because Japan has these shogunates where everything's kept in one fortress, and for some reason the fortresses were just built in this star shape, like like almost 1,000 years ago. They were built in this like star shape, this star
Yeah.
geometry, and they have everything in there, going back to the Edo, past the Edo period, the shogunate period, and those swords are so big that no human living today can wield them. But the way they were made and the amount of resources that were funneled into making these, they were obviously for a type of giant samurai.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Wow. That is fascinating. Now, I know
yeah,
you wanted to get into the Moors a bit. Why do
yeah.
you think this group of people were essentially erased from most of our history?
Because they still exist today. See, you don't have to waste time removing anyone's respect for the blemmy, right? Because we don't see those anymore. We don't see any blemmy. You can go deep into like the Peruvian mountains, and you're not going to find any blemmy. And if you do, it's going to be from a very far distance because they have been
And what
almost
is
certainly.
Blemmy?
So a blemmy is a type of person, the last of whom died in the UK, that doesn't have a neck.
Oh,
Again, it's a very fantastical creature, but
wow.
it is so profoundly captivating when you see one that it almost speaks to a genetic memory of a past that we maybe have forgotten about. So the blemmy is recorded so, to such a large extent. I mean, there is such an incredible amount of documentation of these people or this race of people that to even entertain the thought that they didn't exist seems like insanity.
Hmm.
Now, when you see these creatures, you can't believe that this would exist. But when you study the biology of the blemmy, you suddenly realize that maybe we are, you know, like shutting ourselves down when we look into this stuff. So for me, this was quite hard the first time. I did shut down, and I decided I'm not going to look into it because it's too ridiculous. But but then after a while, I started to see that they were painting these in the monasteries, into the manuscripts and the various tomes of a bygone era, bygone eras, and they come up in religious texts too, and then you can't ignore it anymore after a while. So
Now, if you're listening on the audio end in the audience, please come over to YouTube or Rumble so you can see the visuals that we're presenting here. To describe it, it's essentially looks like a headless man with a face on its torso, and it's a drawing, basically a piece of artwork, but it's describing what these people essentially were supposed to look like, correct?
yes, yes. I mean, there are records of them in Namibia. There is a record of them in Japan.
Wow.
There's a brewery in China that still uses the blemmy in its
Whoa.
packaging. There are records of them living in Yorkshire in the 1800s still.
Now, how do you spell that, Blemmy?
So there are different ways to spell it. The way I spell it is and Blemmeye. So blemmaye. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But
Interesting.
it depends which country, because unfortunately we are all living post the Tower of Babel, so we all babble, we all have these different languages. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which is one of the biggest problems really, when you kind of find old names of things.
Yeah.
But the blemmy is fascinating because biologically, we can feed ourselves through our navel, but how the eyes got down there, I'm not sure. Maybe the remnants of the eyes are the nipples that we have today. Um,
Yeah. Huh.
our whole head just pushed up through our shoulders, if this is indeed our ancestor, as many have
Yeah.
claimed. Yeah.
Wow. That is fascinating. So this is connected to Moorish history?
Well, yeah, I mean, the earliest Blemmies were from what we call Africa today. But yeah, I mean, it's connected to Moorish history only really in the fact that it is proof um, of nobody really being very concerned about discussing this particular creature, which could be actually a human. Now
Hmm.
we would consider that to be a deformity if someone didn't have a neck, but if we can begin to shrug off that brainwashing, because that's the product of nothing more than brainwashing, to think that a person who's a different size or is missing something or has extra arms, or because those were deities in ancient Hindustan. That would be a deity. If you had extra arms, you would be
Yeah.
then worshipped, right? You'd be revered as something, as a message of positivity. Whereas we are always told, oh, that's gigantism, you have a
Hmm.
problem. Your bones are growing at an abnormal rate, or none of those people are healthy. But you go to certain Eastern European countries, and people are just taller. If you go to like Northern Europe, people are just taller and they look different. And I think we are a mixed match of everything. I think that's what the Homo sapien is. I think some of us are maybe more reptilian than others. Some of us are more
Hmm.
mammalian than others, and it's a beautiful thing because it kind of means that we are evolving, we are constantly growing, and maybe what we do and what we eat, it does have an impact. But I think the way we look at the world has a bigger impact. So
According to
yeah.
most people that have been presenting evidence of our hidden ancient past and a Tartarian empire, the reason it's kept from us, the reason they hide the knowledge of this historical past is because our ancient ancestors had advanced knowledge that allowed them to live more harmoniously and possibly have free energy, the capability to communicate and travel more effectively than we do now. And the ruling class didn't want that to be freely available. So
Hmm.
it's possible they may have caused a mass reset to perpetuate the end of that empire. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, what they did with the Tartarians and what they obviously did with the blemmaye. The blemmaye was obviously bred out or excluded from society. I think giants also were excluded from society. There's a thing that we do as modern humans where we single out anything different, anything unusual, and I think this is why certain leaders, presidents, chancellors, or emperors can kind of piggyback on our natural survival instinct, which seems to be to exclude anything different. Like if
Hmm.
you're unusual, if you have three eyes, you're not going to find a mate. You're not going to find a partner. You're not going to find employment. You're probably
Right.
unlikely to continue your lineage, and it's probably going to die out.
Mm.
And I think that's what's happened with us. I think we are almost like worm people. I think our faces are more sort of geometrically more similar to worms. If you saw a dog man, and there are many of those existed, was an entire uh, empire of dog men that the Romans were fighting that have just been wiped from our history.
Wow.
And they were called cynocephali, and they're probably one of my favorites because I think that was one of the 12 lineages, biblical lineages, because Saint Christopher was a cynocephali. He was portrayed in Russia in Orthodox churches as a cynocephali, and this is another species of Homo sapien, I think,
Mm.
that was also removed from our history. So the Moors are very much connected with that because they are also being removed from our history. But it's easier to prove that the Moors still exist. It's a good way into this alternative history.
Would you say that there was a global civilization that shared its knowledge of whatever kind of ancient technology they were using at the time, the knowledge of astrology and construction methods, things of that nature, that they had this global sharing of this knowledge?
Um, yes. So the idea of sharing knowledge is a very difficult one because you have to know that you're in surroundings where you can where that knowledge can be given. Because one of the biggest tricks of modern society is a to make you docile and just accept anything, and to get insulted every time someone tells you something that goes against the narrative. Because it's kind of difficult to. I mean, it's easy to fool people, but it's hard to prove to them that they've been fooled. You see, so so first of all, you make truth seem like it's madness. Then you make people, despise truth, and then you can do anything you want. So I mean, you can tell them absolutely anything. You can tell them aliens are taking over or something. So
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, we want to stay away from a one world government where everybody looks the same and does the same thing, and there's no culture anymore. So this here is like one of those etchings, medieval etchings of these dogmen. This is, I
Yeah.
think, a European one. Those have
Wow.
all been removed. I mean, I can show you Greek statues where they had a palace full of statues of the dogman, the Sino Cephali, and they were worshiping them. Even today in Orthodox churches, they still use the murals of the Cynocephali. As, so what I'm worried about is that if we do bring those back, if we bring back knowledge of that, um, you know, uh, uh, is that going backwards for these elites? Because if we know that knowledge, they can't really justify ruling us. Can you see what I mean? Like
Hmm.
the idea of ruling people, that's really the key. That's why a lot of them are trying to sort of remove the truth. So my theory with the Moors is that actually the Moors come from America, and that America is as old a land as any other. So so yeah, you find the blemmaye all around the world. They've been
Mm.
removed. You find the Tartarians all around the world, but that history has only just been uncovered in the last 3 years. This is an interesting discovery of mine, that you have ancient America. There are three figures here that look almost identical. So
Wow.
this concept of teachers arriving in and finding their way into every hunter-gatherer community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
is
I'm laying the
fascinating.
foundation here for the idea of a Tartarian empire before I try to prove it. If that makes
Uh,
sense logically, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the timeline, would you say that Atlantis and its fall was long before the Tartarian Empire?
Yes, yes. I mean, you have some record in Greek mythology, I think, or was it Plato who spoke about Solon, one of his teachers, and
Hmm.
he said that Solon, even Solon was like a few, maybe 3,000 years after, and he just heard something about this empire that ended up under the sea. Uh, and he said there were rings around rings that were built, that everything was built like that. Everything was built rings and around rings. So, although I don't believe that the Atlantean Empire is the Tartarian Empire, I do believe that that knowledge passed through Hindustan, then through Egypt. This is important that it's Hindustan first, Hindustan, then through Egypt, then from Egypt to Greece.
Hmm.
And the reason why I think it's from Egypt to Greece is because all of the great Greek like philosophers, teachers of the golden age of the Greek Empire, they all went to Egypt. Some of them between 10 and 15 years. Not common knowledge.
Wow.
They went to Egypt. They had to probably the first 4 or 5 years. They just had to convince the Kemetan
Wow.
teachers. And Egypt was not in modern day Africa. Egypt was America. Yeah. They went
Interesting.
there. They went there to these four-headed river system, this incredibly virile land, and where obviously you find more pyramids in like North and South America than you do in Africa anyway. And on
Yeah.
old maps before the 14th century, there are no records of pyramids at all in modern day Egypt. So also the way the pyramids are built, they are built in a very specific star format that the Moors embraced. So I don't think they're as old as the pyramids in the United States. Yeah, the
Wow.
Moors embraced a very specific mathematical equation, and we call
Hmm.
that the Fibonacci sequence today. And they use that for their architecture, even their headdresses, the way they adorned their weaponry, everything they did. Uh,
Hmm.
even water irrigation was modeled on this frequency, and most of that happened in China. So, which does seem strange. Like, why? How can
Hmm.
China be the Tartarian Empire? Well, a Tartar city was actually modern day Beijing. So those were also this Tartarian Empire. And the Tartarian Empire and the Moors are also the same empire. Yeah.
What time period would you say was the height of the Tartarian Empire civilization?
I think the height was uh, I would say the when things really started changing was from the very end of the 11th to 14th century. Then there
Hmm.
was this reawakening of Tartaria, where we have the great sort of American uh, invasion around 40 in the 1490s, 1498, and then the slow decline. But the decline itself was 400 years, 400 years of losing territories, Crimean Tartary,
Mm.
a Grand Tartary. Then we have the Boxer Revolution, where the British started funding the Chinese so they could break through the Tartarian Wall, break into the Forbidden City, and all of those water magic platforms disappeared. I have prints and pictures of those, but as far as I'm concerned, like Samarkand has always been Tartarian. They just changed it a little bit to Turkey. And then you have Russia, which is obviously the sort of Eastern Tartary. So that's not really changed, even though that we did have the Bolshevik Revolution, where I mean, this is coming up almost to like modern day, but the Bolshevik Revolution was all about taking the gold, taking the secrets, and
Mm.
and 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 then the final, inner Earth, which is also part of the Tartarian Empire, which was then World War II, and the Nazis found their way into the
Oh,
inner
wow.
Earth. So they had that initial expedition, which was funded by, I think, Heinrich Himmler, and then you have the second exhibition because they were constantly getting attacks happening, like airborne attacks, in the United States. So that's when Admiral Byrd decided to do the same thing, to try to trace the steps of where the Nazis went. And
So
but I
it
mean,
was
he was.
more of a gradual reset as opposed to them triggering a mud flood across the planet at one time.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, Russia has always been the Tartarian Empire. It's just that
Mm.
when the Tartarians split with the Moors, just like the Tartarians split with the Ottomans, then everyone was putting this black dragon on all of their sigils and war banners. So you can work out when the Tartarians became more of like an Aryan empire as opposed to a Tartarian empire. And
Oh.
I think that was when when you have these three Russian kings, three British kings, which were actually German royalty. So the German royalty ended up in Britain. That was the Saxe-Coburg, Saxe-Gotha, and the Coburg and the Habsburgs. They all escaped the revolutions in Europe and started a new empire in Britain called the Windsors, right? And they were all Tartarians. So they're all black people. All of the British royalty were black, and then they started to do whatever they had to do to whitewash themselves to be able to kind of fit in with
Oh.
the native people at that time. And what then happened is Queen Victoria had cousins and sons everywhere. So you have at the same time you have Tsar Nicholas in Russia, you have Kaiser Wilhelm in Germany, and you have King George. So you have these three relatives. I mean, two of them were brothers, one of them was a cousin, and and you'd think then, okay, so this is like a perfect scenario to make some money, right?
Mm.
Because that's what every war is about. It's about bankers making money, and the bankers all work for the Vatican, and the Vatican works for the royal, lineages. So they are still Moorish lineage, they are still Tartarian lineages, um,
Mm.
but they have this buffer now. They have these like fake caveat families. Then you have the Rothschilds breeding into every royal lineage because every royal lineage is in debt to the bankers, and the bankers are doing whatever the Vatican wants. And I think that's the place we're living in. We're living in absolute hell, really. Because if the bankers want to make money, they will create another war, and they'll
Mhm.
always make money because they're always going to be focusing all of the manpower of multiple nations into supplying a war effort, which means you have a customer. You have a customer for supplies. You have a customer for weaponry, ammunition. And that's kind of the Tartarian Empire, kind of the second or the third Tartarian Empire. Yeah, when you say like Roman Reich, you're actually saying Moorish Reich. It's just the letters have been moved
Huh.
around. So you have Moorish is actually Roman.
Wow.
But when you find out half of the Roman emperors were also Africans, like Carthaginians, um, and you
Really?
and there's a lot of invasions
Huh.
that we were told didn't succeed. Like Julius
Wow.
Caesar was a black man. He just
What?
couldn't get voted into the Senate. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
What?
records of the complexion of these emperors, and for some reason, we're not allowed to look at their
Hmm.
hair. Like even in Egypt, you can't go into the wig rooms, the Egyptian wig rooms, the ancient wigs that all the kings and queens were wearing, because they all
Really?
wanted these flamboyant wigs, just like the modern lawyers and judges
Yeah.
do in the law courts. They all have these permed wigs. They're because they've taken the Moorish knowledge, they've taken the Moorish universities,
Wow.
and yeah, I mean, it's fascinating for me to see the connections. But when you talk about a Tartarian empire, when you talk about really any empire, uh, any great empire, it really doesn't end. You know, it really does. I mean, there's no ending to it. The Roman Empire became the Vatican. So the Vaticano, also that means something. That means like the Snake Empire, the Dragon Empire. So
Hmm.
yeah.
What kind of technology do you think was made available during that time period at the height of technological knowledge that they may have had? I know it's probably not anything like we experience today, but you mentioned things like water magic. What else was possible during that period?
I mean, yeah, water magic is uh, there's lots of ways to approach that topic. So I mean, um, first of all, you have Beijing, which was called Peking, and then was called Tartar City. So Tartar City, you can look at that on maps now, old maps that I have a few of these, and there's a lot of references to a Tartar or to the Tartar City, and that's where I found some of the sort of the least sophisticated but still incredible versions of this technology. Maybe I can show you that. So this is a map. I'll show you the map first of Tartar City. So the city uh, was very well fortified. It took a long time to get into it. So can you see that? Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's Tartar or Manchu city. So this is not the oldest map that I have. I mean, there are older maps. And then when you look at Tartar City, you can then look at the walls of the city, and then some of the inner parts of the city. So yeah, you have Chinese city underneath. So this is maybe just before the Boxer Revolution, after one of the initial invasions, when they came up with some kind of stalemate. But the actual Beijing Forbidden City is right in the center there. That's the Forbidden City or the Imperial City, and you can
Mhm.
see that's well inside the Tartar City area. Yeah. So this architecture was pretty impressive. I can try to show you some the architecture. So this is a photo in the 1800s. This may have been after the invasion, the Boxer Revolution uh, invasion, when I think the Holy Roman Empire and Britain maybe um, were the two empires that did attack. I think Britain and China attacked together um, and got through the Great Wall uh, of uh, of Tartaria into Tartar City.
Hmm.
So I mean, this is like one of the early mentions in Asia, and if you look at old maps, you will see a really interesting landmass that is incredibly large that was called this kind of Tartarian Empire. And I
Wow.
do like looking at maps because I think that that's like one of the best ways to begin research. But I think the people themselves were quite large. So there was a map of Tartaria. There are actually many maps now. As people start researching it, the topic. Um, so Tartaria had a very interesting type of architecture that those large walls with the wind tunnels and
Hmm.
utilizing air, utilizing water. Yeah, I'll try to see
Were
if I
they
can find a.
basically using air and water to create some kind of energy?
Yes, yeah. I mean the whole concept of electricity, I think, was rediscovered by the Tartarians because
Hmm.
electricity is also one of these things that has been around for a long, long time, and it's just fascinating when you realize the connection between the Tartarian Empire and biblical accounts of like a kingdom for a kingdom on on earth for Jesus, because
Mm.
Jesus is mentioned within those maps. So maybe they're also Christian, or not
Really?
Christians, but followers of this Merovingian line that I've discovered, that ends with uh, Jesus having daughters with Mary Magdalene, which is a Gnostic belief.
Huh.
I'm leaning towards that, even though biblically, I mean, within modern Christendom, we're told obviously that Jesus did not have children after he was resurrected, that he went up to his Father, right, to heaven. Um,
Mm.
so, so this is a really old map. We see China here, India. Now, India wasn't called India until I think the maybe 1830s. Before that, it was called Hindustan. So I know that this map is going to be around the 1830s, 1840s. You can see here two empires very close together, the Mongol and the Tatar. I, I think proving that they are the same gives us this access point, this connection between Grand Tartary. I'm not saying that China was China in the 1800s. Can you see how this connects with all these other dominoes,
Yeah.
all these other different issues? So there's an issue that Asian looking people didn't really, or weren't really the only inhabitants of what is modern day China.
When you
You
mentioned
have,
Jesus, I've heard theories that Genghis Khan may have been a descendant of Christ. Have you
yes,
looked
yeah.
into that?
Yes, yeah. I'm pretty sure that Genghis Khan, there's a burial mound for him with crucifixes on top. I'm pretty sure he was part of that line. I think somebody intentionally
Huh.
wants us to think that Genghis Khan was an Asian person, even though that he was fighting against China nonstop. I have no idea. And he went all the way to Vienna, to Austria. How would he even know to go there if he didn't have some kind of connection with with uh, with those Ethiopian and Algerian and Moroccan people that rebuilt Europe after 711 AD. But I'll try and focus on just this because I want to talk about Europe. I really do
Hmm.
because I'm itching to.
Yeah.
But here you can see the Tatar and the Mongol as one empire, or yeah. I mean, they may have conquered a lot of these other areas, like for example, there's a Karakoram Tartari. There could be a lot of Tartaris, but you have to also realize this is from the perspective of a Western explorer. Yeah, someone like Marco Polo, most likely,
Oh.
who dressed up in Tartarian clothes for some of the portraits of him. So there's a lesser Tartary and a bigger Tartar and a Grand Tartary. The Grand Tartary has a dragon or griffin, and the lesser Tartary has a black owl. And then China has a dragon facing the other way, which makes me believe that the reason why people are reading from left to right as opposed to right to left is partly because of these two empires.
Hmm.
Because in China, everything moves the opposite direction. I think China is what Tartaria was, or Grand Tartary. You then also have other Tartaries like Crimean Tartary. Those people ended up in Hitler's army. Actually, they had their own Waffen SS was
Huh.
Crimean Tatars, which is insane. It's just the connection is insane. So this is one of my favorite maps because this one tells us about a European Tartary connection. So this was all set up by Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, that whole lineage.
Mm.
The the idea of all of these being on the Merovingian line or Jesus's lineage is quite fascinating because it justifies why they have spent so many decades, if not centuries, and ungodly amounts of money hiding it from us. Yeah. So this one, Logos Tata. Um, this is yeah. I mean, it has a few more. Pontus Exinius. So we have the some Latin references. Yeah. Ukraine
Mm.
or Ukraine's mentioned there. Volhynia. Um, yeah. So this is another map. I mean, I keep collecting these. So the S was an F. So if it says ruffian, it means Russian. If it says lesser, it means. I mean, if it says lesser, it means lesser. Because this is before the reset. So if anyone says great or greater, they are basically telling you that there was a reset between that period of time and ours.
Oh, wow.
That's code. That's code that keeps coming up. So there
Yeah.
was no letter J. There was no letter G. You won't find certain letters. You will never find a letter G or J. Sorry, you will never find a J, and you may not find the same use of certain letters. Yeah, like an F was an S. So this is called the Great Vowel Shift. There are actually many books on that. So if anyone says
Wow.
great, like Great Wall or great, a great mountain or a great empire or the great flood, right? If anyone says anything like that, that is code for pre-reset when everything was wiped. Everyone's memory was wiped and they killed as many people as they could to regain control over their, kingdoms, I think.
Now, was it the Rockefellers that commissioned all the academics at the time to essentially begin rewriting all the history books to fit their narratives?
Well, yes. I mean, I think just delete as many things as you can. The
Mm.
idea sorry, the burning, the Kindle. When you have like Kindle is a funny sort of uh, reference to burning books. So if you get people onto digital, you can Kindle all the books, burn all the books because you can change the books. No one's gonna know.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to go back to the old information. You've got to go back to the like 1700s because I think what they were doing is not only rewriting history for themselves, they were also trying to write themselves into it to add a 13th bloodline, that kind of thing. Like the
Wow.
Rothschilds want to be royalty, but they're not royalty. They
Yeah.
want to breed with the royals to become part of royalty because they lost that. Because this goes all the way back to biblical times. Have you heard of the
Mm.
Shield of Edom? The,
Yes.
yeah, that,
For
that's
those
the
that
red
aren't
shield.
familiar, tell us a little bit more about this.
So the Shield of Edom is the idea that the lineages. So this Tartarian Grand Khan of the Mongol and Tartar, right? The fact that that can even exist uh, means that the chosen lineage is shifted from Esau to Isaac, because this is the Grand Khan of the
Mm.
Mongol and Tartar riding elephants, these massive elephants that we see sculptures of in every European city, and that is only possible because a birthright was sold for a bowl of beans and a lack of appreciation for a birthright or a firstborn lineage birthright. Now, what happened after this kind of old world belief that the line of a specific family goes through the male? That is now shifted, and now it goes through the female, or it has gone through the female for many centuries.
Mm.
But the Shield of Edom concept is a fascinating story, and it basically it goes back to Isaac buying his I guess his firstborn status, which puts him in line in in the line of David. So Isaac was not the firstborn. Esau was. But even though Esau was born first, he should have been the rightful heir to his father's primary blessing, which means that he would be in the line of the chosen line. Yeah, and then Jesus would come out of his line. But because Esau lost the birthright and sold it for a bowl of beans, um, or so the biblical scripture goes, the official blessing was then transferred from him and given to Jacob. So instead of Isaac Esau, he went Isaac Jacob. And was it trickery? I mean, you could argue that it was trickery. I had someone talk to me the other day say, could you theorize that it was a trickery that him and his mother conspired to steal it? And you could argue that. I'm open to that theory. Uh,
Mm.
but what you have to say then is, well, if the relationship broke down between the brothers, we have a very similar, almost a mirroring of Cain and Abel, where they both give offerings, but only one's accepted. So it's about a frequency of the heart, maybe a positive connection with your soul. So I mean, causing this rift in the lineage is, I think, basically all that really matters. I mean, you can talk about 12 lineages or 13 lineages. You can even argue that the snake had another offspring with um, with Eve in the Garden of Eden. There are Gnostics that also have a faith to that effect. But if you're hiding an entire empire like Tartary, you're obviously doing that because that's the chosen line. So I don't really care
Right.
about all the others. I care about the one that people have been hiding, the one that is responsible for all these great star forts, all these great cathode, anode churches and cathedrals that have nothing to do with Christianity. They are just healing stations for all of us to recalibrate. Because if you understand water, you understand your own water. You understand this piezoelectric energy that you have crystals in your mind, in your brain, that your teeth are crystals, that everything is crystallized. It's a divine connection. And I think if you wanted to go back to the very root of something splitting within the human race, I think that's probably the first time that two lineages split, and one lineage, the red shield, is trying to regain and
Mm.
repurchase their birthright.
Wow. Earlier, you mentioned dogmen, dragons, giants. It would seem that we walked amongst what we now consider mythical creatures for some time. Is that right?
I think we still walk around dragons and the chimeras of all kinds. I
Mm.
think they're in our symbolism. I think the modern day parasites maybe have changed their geometry. I think that if you have parasites within you, like the vril that people put into their eye as
Yeah, yeah.
a type of worshipping, maybe like almost a self-sacrifice, sacrificial kind of um, thing, like allowing the parasites, which if you ever look at parasites, like I'm talking about physical worms in your intestine.
Mm.
If you look at those, if you look at their faces, you are looking at something very, very kind of almost demonic. Anyway,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but yes, the theory is that the demons are still here. They are always going to be in the algorithm of this reality. And if you eat the unclean thing, if you start eating hoofed animals like pork, for example, I think you are going to affect your own resonance because everything is frequency. I firmly believe that. I think that there's not much difference between light, sound, physical matter. This is all frequency. And I think as we become more intelligent, as we become more connected with our reality, as we learn more about these empires that have been hidden from us, we will start to realize that actually not all humans are human. You know,
Mm.
not that we don't know anything about the ocean, and there's probably more. There's more to discover in the ocean probably than anywhere else. And if people keep
Yeah.
flying rockets into the sky. Maybe that's a distraction and misinformation too.
Yeah.
Because I think that every time a great discovery is is made, people want to repackage it, make money out of it, turn it into some kind of movie, then have a great actor in the movie, and then villainize that actor through some kind of slander or some kind of cancellation, and then the whole thing becomes negative, and they believe that's the way to win. Like there will be movies about Tartaria, and they will be 100% because of research that has been done by people, but they will try
Mm.
to curtail it and manipulate it and turn it into something else, because that's where they get their energy from. And I don't think humans want to do that. I don't think we want to do that because we are geometrically perfect for this realm. Even our skull is this musical instrument that can manifest things. I think that we there's a reason why we're still here and the dog man isn't here. I think that these people may have done, or these creatures may have done something wrong. They may have done something evil. I think if there's a flood and there's no dragon on the flood, then that's
Mm.
going to affect the population of dragons, right? Like if there's an ark and the dragons aren't in it, that's also going to destroy the ability for dragons to, exist.
Hmm.
So I think that um, I I do believe that humans are at our very sort of foundation, we are good, we are positive, we are trying to help. And I think the older we get, the more we're trying to help, the more we realize that, hey, actually, I think there might be a creator God. We probably didn't evolve from monkeys.
Do you think we may be on the verge of another attempted reset by the parasitic ruling class?
Yes, they are definitely trying to constantly use fear and low frequency emotions. And I think we see that in the music industry, where the frequency has been brought down to like
Mm.
430, so that we always feel nervous and unsure and confused and
Mm.
stressed. Like stress, they say stress is a killer. But what
Yeah.
is stress? It's just an emotion. It's a feeling. It's not being sure, not being grounded. And it's the same with fear. If you're in fight or flight all the time, you have no time for creativity and no energy for it. And creativity is what differentiates us from them.
Mm.
I mean, humans can actually create. I mean, the female can literally put a soul into a physical body. That's a portal.
Mm.
Every woman has that ability, and a man is like one man can father endless amounts of children. Like we are creative beings. I'm not saying you have to have multiple wives. I'm just saying
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we are creative creatures, and our energy force, if we don't let it kind of leave us, if we keep our energy force, it actually travels back up our spine into our frontal cortex, comes back down again, and we can awaken chakras that our body contains,
Mm.
uh, seven chakras that almost every civilization on Earth has structured their architecture around. And it's the Tartarian Empire that did this better than any other, because they were using materials that would enhance the human consciousness, enhance our longevity, to the point where they
Mm.
didn't even have to construct toilets and kitchens and bathrooms in the buildings, because literally the energy was being given back to us. It was around. They were rounded buildings with domes. So the sun, this like sunlight that Albert Einstein called photoelectric effect, which was his greatest theory, not EMC squared.
Mm.
Photoelectric effect, the fact that sunlight can turn into energy and electricity. And every great invention, I believe every great invention originates with those copper domed, palaces and manors,
Mm.
and because that technology started by studying the human body. And if we understand our own body, then we will understand the architecture. If we understand the architecture, we will understand how this empire even existed, how they could draw maps the way they did, because they had flying machines. There's nothing new under the sun. We had electric cars in the 1800s. So
Charles, this is fantastic. We're definitely going to have to do this again. We barely scratched the surface on some of this information, so love to
Yeah.
have you back in the future. Before I let you go, let the audience know how they can get more of your content.
Yes, yes. I mean, I post every day. I post every day because that's how the algorithm works. So please, yes, please contact me on Instagram. Instagram Charles Ross. Please contact me on Charles Ross on Facebook. I also have a TikTok account. You can contact me on my TikTok account. I love to have debates, discussions. Most of what I know, or most of what I've found out about our realm, has been because people have sent me links and contacts, and
Mm.
um, and yeah, I mean, you can only do so much. So yeah, if we, as a community, I think it's a great community.